Have a little think about the police. So this is an article that came out 2 days ago. Updated yesterday. Going back to what we talked about at the start of this episode with the grooming gang stuff. 5 women, I believe it is now, have also come forward. Women who were exploited in the Rotherham grooming gangs. Stating that it was actually police that attacked them as well. So it wasn't just these actual criminals. It was police were engaging in the sexual abuse as well. So this is from the BBC. 5 women who were exploited by grooming gangs in Rotherham as children say they were also abused by officers in the town at the time. One says she was raped from the age of 12 by a serving South Yorkshire police officer in a marked car. He would threaten to hand her back to the gang if she did not comply. She said, in a world where you were being abused so much, being raped once by a police officer is a lot easier than multiple rapes by the gang. And I think he knew that, she tells the BBC. So the police car, the yellow, the fluorescent green and blue and white spotted cars, usually when you see those things, you see them as a symbol of protection, of dominion that's been given to them, of protecting and serving the public of their constituency. And then you have members of that you got to think, have they been put in those positions deliberately that are now going and harming some of the most vulnerable in the society that they are supposed to protect above all, irreparably harming them in those very vehicles and in those very uniforms that they put on that gives them that badge of protect and serve. They're using that force, they're using that charge which was given them to do good, to do evil. I don't think in many instances, in many areas of this country, there's no saving the police at this point now. There's no saving the police. It makes you wonder now, though, why are our government trying to get so many, why are they trying to do so many foreign drives for police officers? Because the good ones of this country will leave. They won't abide by this. They won't go with this. They'll leave. But then that leaves a gap to be filled. If anything, they want those gaps to be filled. They want those good people to leave. This is the thing. This is how you know we're dealing with true evil. We're dealing with true evil, far bigger than any one of us, far bigger than any individual. You got to think, no human on their own could ever think up with something like this, something so evil but something so clever. Do everything you can to simply make the good people leave. To make the good people leave, right? So that you can get even more evil people in. And you can do it under the guise of making yourself look good because you're giving job opportunities to underrepresented minorities, to underprivileged people. And the people leaving, they were far-right fascists anyway. Because they didn't want to be part of an organization that facilitated rape against children in the name of justice. We have seen written accounts from these women, plus testimony from 25 other victims of grooming gangs. Some of those women saying that corrupt police officers worked alongside gangs or failed to act on child sexual exploitation. At least 1,400 children were abused by men in Rotherham between 1997 and 2013. And that was from Professor J. Alexis J. in 2014. I've talked about this as well, that about between 2.4 and 4% of the population were responsible for nearly two-thirds of the crimes. There needs to be a cull at this point. There needs to be a cull. We've allowed this wound to fester and get infected so much that the only thing that we can do now in order to save anything, to save our society, anything like that, is to start amputating, is to start cutting the limb off. Otherwise, the infection is only going to spread further. Antibiotics are not going to do anything at this point. Antibiotics are not going to do anything at this point. Because you've let so many people in many instances, you've let so many people in. They've shown they're actively going to facilitate this. They're actively going to do good, use good to do evil. Use a symbol of good to do evil. Both people of this nation and also those of not. That no matter how you try to get people in to try and teach them about all the sensitivity trainings, all of this bullshit white liberal woman HR stuff, right? Thinking you can save everyone. Oh, I can change them, I can save them. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. Maybe you're not powerful enough. Maybe you're not strong enough to save them. Maybe they need something bigger. Someone more powerful to save them. Who even just at the very hint of that name, do you guys know what I'm referring to? That will cause a liberal HR lady to shriek like the devil, right? Patriarchy, feminism, oppression. But maybe you can't, maybe you don't have the facilities to do anything about this. And maybe everything you're trying to do about it is making it worse. Maybe everything you're trying to do about it is making it worse. This point, with the police especially, and I've actually reached out to somebody. I'm hoping to get them on the podcast. I'm hoping they see my message and respond to it soon. Let's get them on the podcast, talk about this, an ex-police officer. So I'm starting to think now, a lot of them, they, you know, if they're like an infected arm. If British society is like the body, these are like a truly infected arm that's already spread to the rest of the body. But if anything, there's no saving it now. In many instances, there's no saving it as much as I'd like to. There's no saving it. The police have done so much evil. And police have done so much evil. It makes you think we shouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt and think that they're going to do good now. In many instances. And all this happens when you don't have good deterrents in place. The good deterrents were against good police officers coming forward and actually doing their jobs, trying to help children. That's where the good deterrents were. Because they'd have their character assassinated. They'd be doxxed. They'd have their address given away so that people who would do them harm for the things that they'd say would go and do them harm. And all of the things which they'd seen happening to other families would then happen to their own. That's what I mean. This runs so deep. The infection runs so deep. That might not even be worth saving it. Might not even be worth saving it anymore. And these things happen every single day. You know, girl 17, this article was published 2 days ago in the Express, raped in a train toilet at 6 a.m. as 30-year-old man was arrested. No description in the article, I don't believe, and no description from the police, but I have heard people throwing out accusations that that it wasn't somebody of native British descent. A teenage girl was raped inside the cubicle of a train toilet. This really highlights to me why a lot of the people, when I have, this relates to something else, a lot of people with the trans debate, for example, that even with communal toilets anyway, this obviously stuff can happen, but when people are getting up in arms about the trans stuff, that men masquerading as women going to go into the toilets, for example, at least when you had the rules before, there was this unwritten social code. If a man walked in there, no matter what they'd say, they'd be, you know, turned around and said to leave, right? And now with the massive psyop that's been put into women's heads, whereby they actually believe that this man masking around as a woman is a woman, and all it takes in this instance, like it happened with this train and obviously like this, but you leaving doors open unnecessarily, all it takes is this person who's likely doing it to get at women because of some perverted fantasy and stuff like that, because they are a sexual degenerate or potentially even a sexual predator, is that they'll follow you into the toilet and they'll just push you towards the back, they'll lock the door and you got nowhere else to go. And then, as I said before, with regards to the whole feminism thing, where it assumes that men and women are perfectly equal, the differences between men and women will become perfectly apparent in that moment. They'll become perfectly apparent in that moment. But makes me sick even just thinking about it. Makes me sick even just thinking about the ordeal that this woman had to go through. This 17-year-old had to go through. British Transport Police have launched an investigation into sexual assault and rape in southeast London. No surprise it was in southeast London. Multicultural paradise where the king, so-called king, said that Donald Trump's remarks on Sadiq Khan being a terrible mayor in a city now that now has a rape every hour. A rape reported every hour, right? 24 rapes a day. 24 rapes a day. That the king comes out and says that he's appalled by Donald Trump's marks. Well, a lot of us are appalled by the Grand Mufti that the king has turned into as well. And like I said, I think it's over, monarchists. I think it's over. The monarchy died with Liz. The monarchy died with Liz, I think. A 17-year-old girl was on the platform towards Abbey Wood at Woolwich Arsenal Railway Station at around 6:05 a.m. on Saturday, 19th July, when she was sexually assaulted by a man. They boarded a train towards Abbey Wood at around 6:00. So she was already getting attacked before she got on the train. She was already getting attacked before she got on the train. Soon afterwards, she was raped in a carriage toilet. So just after 6:10 a.m. The man left the station at Abbey Wood while the girl continued alone to Slade Green Railway Station and later reported the incident to police. A 30-year-old man was arrested on July 24th on suspicion of rape, taken into custody, and he was later released on bail, which is fairly standard for this country. It's fairly standard for this country. I suppose at that time, you can't necessarily prove at that point that he did actually commit it. But this is the thing. Will he actually face justice for it? Will anyone actually face justice for these crimes? We've seen justice denied time and time and time again in cases like this. Will they actually face justice? Highly doubtful. Highly doubtful. Of course, it'll always be a case of lessons were learned. Lessons were learned. Will we learn the lesson, for example, that this liberal lady on this next video refused to learn, seemingly? A Sky News reporter, as this guy who's in prison, he's a prisoner of ISIS. He's a prisoner of ISIS. This is a video that surfaced 2 days ago. This video of ISIS, and Sky News are doing this interview and cannot get it into their heads that ISIS is just regular Islam, that there is no such thing as a ISIS law and then Muslim law, extreme applications of Sharia law is a term she uses. She's like, and the guy's just like, no, there's just Sharia. There's just Sharia law, and Muslims live by Sharia law. There's no extreme version of Sharia law. It's all Sharia law. It shows the ignorance of the West on full display. Sadly, does appear to be driven by women like this. I don't like saying that because I know I'm going to get crucified for it. But it's true. It's true. A lot of us now have seen this coming for a long time. A lot of us know that there is now no difference, as we were told and lied to time and time again. There is no difference, between an ideology of the terror groups and the ideology of the rest of the society. There's no difference. There's no difference. It's all Islam. It's all Islam. And unless we understand that and then understand what we need to do about it, there's a very good chance you and me are going to be in the exact same position that this guy is in this video.
Would you like to still see an ISIS-style caliphate?
I like to say caliphate there, but I don't know what ISIS-style caliphate is.
Well, the one that we saw between 2014 and 2019 was an ISIS caliphate, where Yazidis were taken as sex slaves, homosexuals were executed, extreme application of Sharia law.
There's no such thing as extreme application of Sharia law, and then there's no Sharia law. As Muslims, we should follow the Sharia law.
You still believe in the ISIS ideology?
I don't know what the ISIS ideology is.
Where is the other
There
version?
you go. So there you go. Put a pause there a minute. You still believe in the ISIS ideology. That she says. She won't call it Islam. Won't call it Islam because these people have it twisted up in their minds that there's difference between these groups. And sure, there's differences between how societies function that claim to be Islamic societies. We'd argue that societies that are not going and trying to spread the caliphate, bring Islam to the world, all of these things, right? You know, they claim to be Muslim societies and stuff like that. Not actually doing a very good job of being Muslim societies. It's kind of funny when you see Muslim extremists in this country, like Dili Hussein, for example, saying that I can't remember what he said, the UAE is like the US of the Middle East, as a criticism, right? It was something like that. It was something like that because it's not so radical in and seemingly wants to, in many instances, be more like a Western nation whilst still trying to hold on to like its Islamic culture and some Islamic norms and stuff like that, right? They'll criticize their own countries for not being extreme enough. Because you could actually make the argument that they're not following the ideology and the person that they claim to, right? You could actually make the claim that they're not actually doing what they're supposed to by being this massive warmongering, you know, trying to spread the caliphate by the sword. You know, in many instances, the extreme, you know, Palestinian terror groups like Hamas and what was it, the PLO, or Palestinian Authority, and Hezbollah, and Houthis, and who else we got? Muslim Brotherhood, we was talking about here, ISIS, all of these things, right? You could, as I believe the son of Hamas said, that all of these things are just Islam, right? Could make the argument that they are following Islam better. That they are following Islam better. They're actually following in the steps of their prophet. But yet, people like this Sky News reporter, they can't get their heads around that. They can't get their heads around that. Because if they did, then that would violate this idea of multiculturalism and multicultural utopia and Islam being a religion of peace. When these people are saying, like, look, I don't get what you mean when you say that there's a difference. I don't get what you mean when you say that there's a difference. There's either Sharia law or no Sharia law. There's not an ISIS caliphate. There's an Islamic caliphate because it all ties back to Islam. It's not an ISIS caliphate. There's no such thing as extreme application of Sharia law. You either have Sharia law or you don't have Sharia law. And Muslims will always live by Sharia law. Therefore, that makes Islam and Muslims incompatible with our civilization because it's a parallel legal system. In many instances, that's the exact opposite of what our legal system and is the exact opposite of what our legal system stands for. And any nation parallel legal systems is on the route to collapse anyway. Is on the route to collapse anyway.